So welcome to my show, Kevin.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, so what's on the horizon for Dexcom in 2021 for patients and healthcare professionals?
Going to be a busy year for us.
Is it?
We talked about yesterday, three product launches. We did not get into details on all of them. Everybody knows the G7 is coming in 2021 at some point in time, and in some markets. A lot of that will depend upon the studies we have to continue to execute. So that's one, but we've got a couple of other very exciting things on the horizon there to, we think, very much enhance patient experiences in the US and internationally as we try and focus more on individual groups and their needs. And so, those types of products are coming for us. We got factories we're building. We're literally just barely done with our G6 scale up, and we are now building the G7 factories, which don't use the same equipment. We talked about yesterday a full-fledged expansion in the US. We are literally pretty much doubling the size of our field presence in the US. And in these times, we need to call on more healthcare providers and make them more aware of the technology, and then continue to focus on making it easy to use.
So Kevin,
Uh,
for the people that don't know what the difference is between the G6 and G7 technologies, what do they need to know?
sure. I'll try and keep the answer brief. Our
Yeah.
G6 platform is by far and away the best technology ever available for this patient group, with the product performance and the ease of use. Our customer surveys are, we try and listen, but our surveys back from our patients are much higher than they've ever been. People love G6 and they do recommend it to others. We get a lot of reference there. The system consists of a sensor that you wear on your body, and then a transmitter that goes inside that sensor that transmits the data to your phone or wherever device you receive the data on. It's simple, it's easy to use, and all that is good. We took everything good about G6 and made it better in G7.
Mhm.
There isn't
And
a separate transmitter. G7 is about 60% the size of our G6 product. We're very happy with the form factor. It's very small, thin, and will be very inconspicuous for patients. The performance, we certainly are planning on it being at least equal to, and certainly we'll refine it over time once we get out on people and see how it works. But it has to meet the standards for the FDA and the European review authorities, and we're confident the product will meet that. It'll again go to the phone directly. We'll have a brand new app with G7 with a different user interface,
Mhm.
an interface where we take a lot of the retrospective data that the one now gets on the Clarity app, and we'll put some of that right in the G7 app to make that system, again, a better tool for our patients, and help them better manage their diabetes. It's going to be a very large step. You take just a few large steps at Dexcom. And I've lived through several of them, going from the receiver originally, well, going to G4 from the first one, and then from the receiver going to the phone was a big step. G6 was a big step because we redid all our manufacturing process to go from G5 to G6, and we are taking another huge leap that's even bigger than the G6 leap was, because we serve so many patients. So never a dull day.
Right. Well, I'm excited to see also that you're advocating more access for type 2s. Can you tell us about that? How did you go about that? And that's always been a big hurdle.
And there's two groups: the type 2 intensive insulin users who are taking multiple daily injections or using a pump now. We have pushed very hard over the years to get access to the technology to those people, because they need the tool. I mean, their life is not much different than somebody with type 1 diabetes. They have to do a computation and take a shot every time they have a meal, or an adjustment for their insulin pump, or use an integrated system from an automated insulin delivery. Early on in the process with the payers, it's, well, we don't want to open up too many people. We don't want to spend that much money. One of the things that's been very helpful for us is Medicare covers those patients. So on the intensive side, we've been able to leverage that. We've seen good results. We've conducted more clinical studies that show how well it works. So we are getting more access to those patients. Now, as we look at the other group, type 2 patients who aren't on insulin yet, who would hope to stay off of insulin and not have their disease progress. How do we get access to those people? Because it's not reimbursed.
Big market. I mean, that just, I mean, I think
Huge.
there's so many people that the type 2s that don't take insulin that really would like the CGM. And it's
Oh,
doing well.
multiple times bigger than the type 1 market. And
Right.
we had a physician that we interviewed in the Investor Day presentation yesterday. And one of his comments were if CGM were a pill, every type 2 in the country to have access to it, because we know how to approve and prescribe pills. But when you go to a device, there's more scrutiny, it's harder. And we have to develop a different set of evidence. But the evidence we've developed has been very promising on both the outcome front. Patients who use CGM, if they're on these pills, they do get lower A1Cs because they learn how to modify their behavior. Also on the medication front, we can very quickly find out if a medication does or does not work. You know, if you turn on your television, you're going to see a type 2 drug advertisement. Mm-hmm. You very seldom see an insulin advertisement, for example, but you always see these various type 2 drugs. These drugs aren't inexpensive and they're worth it. I mean, let's be clear. They're great therapies if they can keep people's A1C down and keep the disease from progressing. But the best way to know if they work is to put a patient on a sensor. Are we giving you enough? Are we giving you too much? And you can see a day when these therapies and these measures go hand in hand. For the insurance companies, the payers, we're working with them for reimbursement. The programs, companies like Livongo, Onduo, WellDoc, we're working with them. We're working with the providers. As you see, health clinics taking on sole responsibility for managing patients, where they're responsible for all the costs and then they share, you know, in the savings. Well, if we add CGM to this and spend more, do we save more? We've had overwhelming data saying they save more, but I think ultimately consumers are going to need to want this. So we're going after all 4 angles to improve access there.
And why do you think there's resistance to that? Because it's
Money.
very clear, anyone that's on CGM, the feedback is so critical. And also, it's really great to get them early in the process, because then you're teaching people, there's immediate feedback and they understand it. It makes sense. It's not this meter on the side, but you test or you feel good or bad, or you're not going to test now because you're going to wait until later because hopefully your blood sugars are better when you test. So it
well,
just feels like,
it's even better than that. You've got my speech down. It's we tell you, you have diabetes, take this pill. Okay, I take my pill for 6 months. I go back in, A1C moved up a little bit, or say, you're good. How do we know you're good? And how do you know what's happened to your body now that you have diabetes? When you put a sensor on somebody and interact with them and show them, you go up, you go down, you go. I mean, we've had such insights in these type 2 programs with respect to things like oatmeal, coffee, obviously orange juice and bagels. I'm citing the breakfast foods.
right.
Late night eating, that would be my personal vice, because I'll work long and then have dinner at 8 o'clock and then go to bed at 10. And then all of a sudden, pancreas says he's asleep, I'm asleep, glucose goes through the roof. People who produce too much insulin, you see that they're low all the time, which is also going to lead to possibly a bad outcome, because your pancreas will just get tired and say it's done. These are things you can't learn without a sensor.
Mm-hmm. And why do you think the healthcare system is not? Why aren't they adopting it and making it more accessible? Because
in
it seems
fairness
like
to
it
the
makes
healthcare
financial
system,
sense.
yeah, we need to go through the steps. And it took us a while to get this approved for all of type 1 diabetes. Let's be clear, we didn't get Medicare approval until 2017. It took a while. And when you add a device to the system, you're adding another element of cost. So if we're going to add another element of cost, we have to figure out how to justify that element of cost. And we need to do the work, some of the work as far as showing outcomes, showing that it costs less money, showing that A1Cs go down, showing that patients are more engaged in their health, showing that doctors can do a better job. That's one of the, not surprising, but one of the more interesting feedbacks we've gotten from physicians who have used this with type 2 patients, non-intensive patients in their clinics. I can actually practice medicine because I can see what's going on and I can tell them what to do. Whereas without feedback like that, They really couldn't. So we need to build a case. We need to get the advice, the industry behind us, the ADA, the American Association of Clinical Endocrinologists, those types of people, to whereby they say, hey, we need this. We need to build the body of evidence up, but you do that by getting it on people, not just by, making presentations. So one of our objectives is to get this technology out there in all these pilot programs that we work with, and then take that data and present it and,
Well,
and,
well,
and
are
advance
these,
the cause.
does the healthcare system need these different organizations to come to them and say, hey, this is really beneficial, and
It's
for
helpful.
them to adopt it?
It's helpful.
Yeah.
It gives somebody another box to check. I mean,
Mhm.
again, people at any company have boxes they have to check when they're going to authorize more spending. And I think we have to go through that phase. But we shall see. One of the programs going on right now is with United Healthcare. They call it level 2. If they have tremendous success with their type 2 program that's based around data from Dexcom CGM and all the other insurance companies see, and it gets going, that may help accelerate adoption. And that's what we're trying to do, Nadia. We're trying to put ourselves in positions to whereby visible partners, again, on Duo, part of Verily, Google related company, these people are actively presenting what they do and showing positive results. That helps drive the train.
Mhm. And how many people are on CGM right now? Like, how many type 1s and type
Well,
2 probably much larger.
we said yesterday we have 900,000 active users, and that was our number, or we'll have
Mhm.
that by the end of the year. And that's up from a number that was in the 600,000s the year before. So
Mhm.
you can see we've added a lot of people this year, and we intend to add a lot more worldwide. I don't have a good number for you. I can tell you, I know in the US penetration rates are, it's certainly about at most 40% in type 1 and type 2 intensive insulin users. I hear numbers between 30 and 40. So we have a long way to go as far as getting more patients on the technology. And that's why that's one of our pillars of growth. When you get to the OUS side, the numbers are staggeringly lower than that. Depending on the geography, there's good penetration in Germany, Scandinavia, but the other countries, much less. And it's a similar story. We've got to get the reimbursement agencies to approve it and to pay for it. And
And
yeah,
why do you think they're aggressive in adopting it
they're
nationally?
not aggressive in adopting it because, again, you're adding cost
You
and
know, but
people.
for Germany and the other Germanic country you just
Well,
mentioned.
Germany's made a commitment to diabetes, as has the Scandinavian countries. We're going to take care of this disease because it costs us more down the line than it costs us today to take care of. And they've made those conscientious decisions and treat patients very aggressively there. It's those markets are quite well penetrated. In the other countries, it's just slower.
Mhm. Are they leaders in diabetes technology and application?
Oh, I would say both. Again, the Scandinavian countries and Germany, widespread CGM penetration between us and Abbott and the Medtronic product. Not as many probably no more insulin pump users than we have in the US, but I'm not really
Mhm.
as familiar with those statistics as I could be. But they definitely have seen the utility of finger sticks lingering, and it's time to push patients over and get patients better options.
And you had a program where there was a new program, I believe, that you launched that's access for the VA. Um,
We did. And we work very hard to improve access for patients across the board. The VA, the statistics of diabetes in the VA are pretty staggering. A lot of those veterans have diabetes and struggle with it. So we went to the VA group, directly negotiated a very easily accessible agreement to whereby veterans can get it through their pharmacy. They don't have to go through all the hoops that they would have had to go through in the past. And we absolutely want to get it to those people. We've had access wins on numerous fronts. We've gotten into several Medicaid programs this year. There's a few holdouts, but it's not just getting it approved. And that's the point with a new technology. You can get a new technology approved, but if they approve it to be used by 5 people, you really didn't get an approval.
mhm.
You have to get the access to the point where it's easily obtainable. And that's one of our key initiatives as a company to improve access. Medicare access, for example, has been around since 2017, and that's really one of our largest growing patient segments. But there's still a lot of paperwork required for Medicare that the patients have to produce, and their clinicians have gotten familiar with it, so it's become easier. And during COVID times, they waived some of the paperwork to make it easier. We'd like that to continue. With our Medicare patients, who have to see the doctor regularly, our telemedicine opportunity has been nothing short of spectacular. The patient's data goes from their phone to the cloud, straight to the doctor's office. Nobody gets in the car. Nobody's subject to COVID and those things that happen, the bad things that could happen. It's been a godsend to the offices during these times for Medicare patients. So that's been something we've heard very consistently.
And then the VA is for people that are taking insulin, right? It's still.
Yeah, it's insulin. It's similar to the Medicare requirements, but that's okay.
Well, I keep looking for a glimmer of light somewhere where someone's
It'll
going to
come.
take that
It'll
risk.
come.
No, not yet. Okay. And then also you have a sampling program that's for the.
We do. I'm glad you brought that up. We actually have two really neat offerings that came out this year that are somewhat related. The first one is what we call our G6 Pro. It's a professional product, and it's made for the healthcare providers to give them ability to do a checkup on their patient. We talk about time in range being the key statistic now for measuring diabetes effectiveness. The only way you can measure time in range is with a sensor. You can't measure it with anything else. We've developed a professional configuration of the product where you have the transmitter and the sensor in one box. They go together, the patient puts it on, the doctor can blind it or unblind it. So the patient can see it, but they can blind it if they just want the patient to live their normal life and not see anything. We've given them a professional tool. They can turn around and bill Medicare or insurance companies for interpreting that data and use it as a checkup tool. I see this product over time. I think CGM evolves into a time in range diagnostic that you can see anybody, even from pre-diabetes on up, wearing as part of their annual checkup. You wear it and let's see how much time you spend, in particular in the non-type 1 space or the intensive insulin users, particularly how much time a day do you spend high? Because if you find yourself spending an inordinate amount of your time above 120 or 150, whatever number your doctor wants to pick, that's a sign that something needs to change. And so the G6 Pro's out, it's good. Then our sampling program, we're very excited about as well. For years we've heard the same thing over and over again. It'd be much better if we could try it first. Could we just try it? And instead, and quite candidly, a lot of this has been because of business restrictions we've had as a provider to Medicare directly and governmental and those types of restrictions. We got out of the Medicare business. That's handled by our distributors now. So we don't have those restrictions. And we really believe giving patients an opportunity to try is a good thing. You go to your doctor's office, they can get you access to Hello Dexcom very quickly. Patient gets a transmitter sensor, instructions, puts it on, uses the app, and off they go. And then they have the opportunity to order Dexcom and move on from there. And if they don't like it, they can say, you know what? They can say, and this will just be the first time, this isn't for me. We'll get another crack at them, I promise you, because the information from a sensor is so important in your healthcare. But for us, from a clinician perspective and from a patient perspective, this is a tremendous opportunity.
No, it just, I really, it baffles me that it's not covered because even a bigger market, of course, is the pre-diabetes market. And I know, of course, you're just trying to get it for type 2s, not.
Well, and we need, we also need to make the right product and the right cost structure for those markets. And we've learned anything this year. And again, I can go to our hospital experience. I think we talked about this before. We launched into the hospital this year. Here, the FDA let us go, and we tried to take our product made for consumers in their homes, their everyday lives, and put it into an ICU. And while it works and the results are great, Dr. Levy spoke about it on Investor Day yesterday, it's very clear that there needs to be a little bit different product configuration for that market, because there's really two problems you have to solve. You have to keep the patient safer. That's number one, and why you use it. But number two, it has to fit in the workflow of a hospital. And we're asking ourselves, engineering wise, as we go forward, what does that workflow look like? And how do we make this more simple versus something you're looking at your phone as a patient and consumer all the time that you want to look at several times a day. And I think the same can be said for prediabetes and type 2. We will have to come with different experiences and different products to best serve these markets.
Mhm. Well, we have a lot of medical devices. I mean, we check our temperature, we check our blood sugar,
Oh, I
our,
got them all.
I
Yeah.
mean, our temperature, our blood pressure. So why wouldn't we check our blood sugar? I mean,
And Nadia, that's one of the problems with COVID. I've had time to diagnose every single thing in my body
yeah.
working from home. I feel pretty good about myself. I'm in better shape than when we started. I've actually exercised more because I can't get out, I can't travel, so I can go spend more time. I have an elliptical at home, so that's been good. But no, I've been measuring a lot more stuff than I did before, trying to figure out what's going on. Yeah.
I've done the same thing actually. I really just I like medical devices. I like being at home and being able to check. And that way, if there's anything that seems abnormal to me, at least then I can, you know,
Yeah,
call the doctor.
I had a conversation with a group in the UK today, and you know, as part of Dexcom and our efforts to grow our business there, and the head person on the phone, the physician on the phone, that's what he said. He goes, "We are going to be moving to healthcare at home." He goes, "I can tell you, if we've learned one thing from COVID,
Right.
we need to take care of ourselves in our homes." And he's, you know, your technology really fits into the space very nicely, which I thought that was unsolicited. It was very interesting to hear somebody say that who's not an endocrinologist, who doesn't even treat diabetes patients, but his view on this is you guys are in a very good place.
Well, I think that's very true about COVID. I think a lot of things are, there's going to be a new normal for everybody.
Yeah.
And I think people are even during the flu season moving forward are going to be more hypersensitive than they've ever been before.
Oh, I agree.
Right. One last question for you.
Okay.
Looking to the future, like what would be really the most outrageous thing that could be developed with CGM technology?
Oh,
So let me, while you're
oh,
thinking about
you want me to go way out there,
I
outrageous?
do. I want you exactly. That's really I want like the Jetson version of
Well, and it's interesting you said, because I would develop the product for me, and I don't know that I'm the typical user, but what I would like is a sensor that measures all that stuff on me all the time. So I get my glucose, my blood pressure, my all the others, just put
right.
it all in one sensor, that glucose sensor probe, and measure some other things in your body. I'll give you an example. We've developed sensors for other analytes. One of those analytes is lactic acid, which you know, during workouts rises and comes down. You can measure the intensity of your organ. I don't work out. I'm not a world class athlete by any stretch of the imagination, but when they said, "Hey, do you want to be in our preliminary study?" I said, "I'll be in the study, but I want to wear one and see." And it was fascinating to me to see, depending upon what my workout was that day, what my lactic acid did. So for me, I'd like to be able to measure a bunch of that stuff. In all fairness, as you look at what's going on around us, Nadia, with what Apple's trying to do with their watch, which what you'll see, I promise, I can only speculate, but I'm very confident what you'll see Google do with Fitbit when they finally get that whole thing worked out, what Amazon's talking about coming out with their band. I think we're going to see sensors measuring lots of these things. And I think Dexcom can play a big part in that revolution going forward. Again, if you just go to what Peter Attia talked about with glucose as a measure of healthcare, it's really important. So
Great.
that's what I would want in the future if it
Yeah.
were
Well,
me.
I would want that too, by the way.
All right.
I think that's a great dream. Thank you. Thank you for joining me.
You bet. Have a great day.
You too.